wish to thank Ed Lidvik of the Lowdown and Jeremy Sherbert of the Cooperative Viewers, and especially my fellow Lower East Side residents for hosting this. Important political forum. A little bit nervous. I'll be fine. I'm Alice Cancel, and I am the Democratic candidate hoping to serve our community in the New York State Assembly. I was born in Mayagüez, Puerto Rico, raised in the South Bronx, and came to live and raise my family in 1975 on our Lower East Side. Many of our community know me as a housing advocate and a fighter for our school children. I was with you through the horrors of 9/11, arranging for cell phones with Verizon and checking on the safety of our homebound seniors. During our Sandy disasters, I helped distribute water and arrange for blankets and warm clothing to be delivered in our stricken community. I have always been proud to be a part of this community with you. Thank you again for inviting me to your forum.
Hello. Thank you, Ed, for taking the time to moderate for us, and thank you, Jeremy, for hosting. First, I want to just introduce myself a little bit to the folks who don't know me in the room, and to say hello to all the folks that do know me. I wanted to just say that, you know, I am an immigrant. I came to this country with my parents when I was just an infant. We moved around a lot, and before making downtown my home. I am running because I really believe in public service. I know that the communities of our district really need somebody who is a strong advocate and can really fight for the things that we care about in the city and in Albany. Going into public service was an easy decision for me to make. You know, watching my parents go through the struggles that they did, I really wanted to make sure to speak up for those who have been marginalized or mistreated. I'm a progressive Democrat, so I believe in a couple of very core values. We have to make sure that we have equal rights for everyone. We have to make sure that we address income inequality. We have to have community empowerment, and we have to have, you know, funding for our public services and public schools. All these issues really matter in our district. We see that, you know, for example, our schools are incredibly overcrowded and underfunded. We see that development is leading to displacement of our working families and our seniors. And we're also seeing that, you know, we are having our infrastructure completely overstressed. We need services for us. We need to clean up Albany by passing campaign finance reform and tougher ethics regulations, and then we also must pass higher minimum wage and paid family leave. Our community faces real challenges, and we can't stick with the politics of the past if we're going to also find solutions for now and for today and for our future. On all of these issues, I hear about from our canvas and from my campaign. I just wanted to say that, you know, as we go forward and elect our first new assembly member in the last 40 years, I believe that I have the right experience to be our voice for our values and stand up for our district. I hope that you will support me and take the time to vote on April 19th. Thank you.
Ed, the gentleman from the Chang campaign would just like to say a word.
Hello, everybody. I might look like Lester Chang, but I'm definitely not. My name's Mike Zabluskis. I'm the chairman of the Manhattan Independence Party, and we're supporting Lester. Lester has been raised in the Lower East Side. He grew up here. He still lives here. His family were immigrants from China, and he knows this district better than anybody else. He knows what it takes. One of the other things that Lester can contribute to this community, which nobody else can, is that Lester served in the Navy, retired as a warrant officer. Excuse me? Can't hear me? Sorry about that. Is that better? Okay. Lester served in military intelligence. During 9/11, he was actually stationed down here. So he knows that this district is a target of terrorism. So he knows how to work with the NYPD, Homeland, and everything else to not only help protect us, but balance the needs of this community with the security needs of this district. Nobody else has that experience. And that should weigh on you in this world that we're living in. The other thing about Lester, he wants to do ethics reform. If you really want ethics reform in Albany, elect Lester, because he will send a message to both Democrats and Republicans. If he can win in this district, they will know it's because of ethics reform. That right now, the Assembly is blocking it, the Senate is blocking it because they don't want ethics reform. You shock them by sending Lester, a Republican up there, from a heavily Democratic district, you'll wake them up. Right now, they're not taking you serious. They're not taking any of us serious, anywhere in the state. They think the elected politicians think they can do what they want. Elect Lester, and it will change their minds. It will shock them. The other thing that Lester wants to do is education. You cannot have an effective society without a skilled and educated workforce. And one of the things he wants to push is vocational studies. I'm sorry, my time's up. I can go on, but thank you for letting me having this time to introduce Lester. Thank you.
So the subject of ethics reform has already come up, not a big surprise, given the circumstances in the 65th Assembly District that we've lived through in the last year or two. So we're going to start with that. And I want to talk first about the issue of outside income, which has been addressed in Albany in the last couple of weeks. The governor wants to limit outside income to 15% of legislators' salary. The Assembly has passed a bill that calls for larger limits than that. So I'd like to ask both of you what limits you would support, if any. And if there isn't any legislation this year on this topic, will you personally pledge not to accept outside income? Yuh-Line, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I personally pledge not to accept any outside income. I actually don't. I think that we shouldn't have any outside income. I know that 90% of our caucus right now has outside income, and that's why it's very hard to pass legislation as we move forward. But we need to get people in there that will believe in changing things as we move forward. And this is our opportunity as a community to really have that effect.
Talking about Albany reform, I want to say term limits for the lawmakers is where we should begin. Because being in that chair for so many years, that gets a lot of people in trouble. I'm talking about the speakership, and I'm talking about chairs. That's what I want to bring to Albany. And also to tighten up the restriction on campaign fundraising, which is another big issue in Albany. That's what I want to take with me to Albany.
And how about outside income?
Outside income, absolutely not.
You would not agree to any limits on outside income, or not the ones that are being proposed?
We should have no special interest outside income at all.
There should be none.
That's right.
The budget process that's ongoing right now in Albany has been criticized in the same way that it's been criticized in past years as lacking transparency, and essentially being the same different faces, but 3 men in a room who are making the decisions. This is a tough thing for a freshman assembly member to go to Albany and try and change that culture. What can you tell us to persuade voters in this district that you would have the guts to go up there and to fight for what you believe in, if you do in fact believe that there should be more transparency in this process? We'll start with you first, Alice.
Oh. Well, again, we need a lot of transparency up in Albany. And there needs to be a lot of laws that have to change. the mechanism as it is failing us. And that's why, again, I brought back the fact that we should have term limits for these lawmakers. I mean, I see it as a way that what happened now, it will be a path for us to learn more and to certainly change a lot of the laws. That would be me.
So I have never had an issue with standing up to folks. I think that people saw that in the county committee process. I used it as a platform to really make my voice heard and to really say something about the process and what I thought about it. I feel like, what we need in our district is somebody who's willing to speak up, who's willing to take the chances. And one of the things that I always remember when I was first, working as an advocate trying to end payday lending was when a legislator came up to me and said, "Don't you want me to be reelected next election?" And that was such an interesting question to me because my first answer was just like, no. If you're not willing to stand up for your people, if you're not willing to stand up for your district, then no, you shouldn't be there, right? What you have to do is you have to make sure that you're able to speak up, stand up for what you believe in, and stand firm.
Affordable housing is obviously a huge issue on the Lower East Side, and so we'll talk about that next. I think that having spoken with both of you, I can say safely that you both believe that there is an affordability crisis in New York City. You can tell me if that's not true. But what tangible steps would you be willing to take in Albany to address the issue, and specifically, do you support a stronger rent law, including the end of vacancy decontrol? We will start with Alice.
Okay. Well, I would begin with repealing the Dearstead law. Okay? Why? Because that law has been in existence in New York for 43 years, and no lawmaker has been able to move anything up there. Okay? And that law was in 1971. Repealing this law gives the city the power back to keep rents affordable.
So yes, first thing, we need to preserve the housing we have, right? We need stronger rent laws. We have 1 million rent-regulated units in the city, and that's about 2.5 million people who need these stronger rent laws. Change is happening in this neighborhood whether we like it or not. New development, speculators, they're coming in and will continue to build in this neighborhood because it's a great neighborhood. Everybody wants to live here. What we need to make sure is that we're not exploited in this process. More housing adds more stress on our infrastructure and our transportations, our school system. It adds a lot of stress to our infrastructure. So we have power collectively and as a whole to really be able to make sure that we use our voice to shape that change. It's not just about speculating developers, but what we need is that we need to show that for people who have worked hard to make this neighborhood great, we have a voice. It's the people who live, work, and play here that should be able to shape our neighborhoods and be able to say to these folks, this is what we need, and if you're gonna come here, then we need these things from you, right? Thank you.
The Essex Crossing project in the former Seward Park urban renewal area is going to be transforming this neighborhood in major ways in the next several years. When the project was approved, there were a number of commitments, including 50% affordable housing, limits on big box retail stores, a school which has not yet been approved by the DOE, protections for vendors in the Essex Street Market so that their rents stay affordable, retail that serves the local community as opposed to primarily tourists. So I'd like to ask you, which of these priorities is most important to you and which would you fight most strenuously for? We start with Alice.
Well, I would fight with certainly affordable housing, because that particular site that you're talking about was the Spira, was something that I here in this community fought for, along with Margarita Lopez and certainly our Councilwoman Rosie Mendez. We fought to make sure that anything that was built there was supposed to be affordable for our community. And still in all, I am still saying that right now, with everything on the table and all of these negotiations, I still want to make sure that we do get that affordable housing for our community.
As it was promised for the poor people.
That's right, as it was promised, that's right. Because when those apartments were demolished, the folks that lived there were promised that when they came back, they were going to have apartments. So that is something that I will certainly fulfill if I get elected April 19th. Absolutely.
For me, we have to hold the developers accountable to make sure they keep their promises, but the one thing that I think that I will fight for the most as we move forward is to make sure that we have funding for that school. Right now, the site is there, but the school funding is not. So we need to make sure that, you know, we build on our infrastructure, and since the site is available, we should have actually taken the opportunity to hold the developers accountable and make sure that we get that school funding, and we can continue to do so. And I think that that's something that I will continue to look forward to helping with and making sure that we have that. You know, of course, like Alice said, you know, we have to make sure that we keep the developers accountable to make sure that, you know, we get the promises that were delivered. But, you know, after 40 years of deadlock, this community actually really came together to help to make sure to put together a very, you know, positive plan to move forward. And I thought that that was very good and very interesting, and we should make sure that, you know, the promises are fulfilled. Thank you.
When the budget negotiations are completed in Albany, one of the big issues that is going to be under discussion is mayoral control of the public schools. So I'd like to ask you both how you feel, you know, what's your position on this issue, whether it should be renewed, and also what you would say to parents who feel that mayoral control has stifled local participation, has prevented them from being as involved in their children's education as they should be. Yuh-Line, we'll start with you.
I'm just trying to write down the question.
Yes, I think that, you know, right now we have to continue mayoral control still, just because, you know, I know that it's been very controversial because we had a different mayor and now we have this mayor, and we want to continue to have mayoral control. But yes, we want our parents to be more involved. I mean, our public schools, of course, you know, have lots of different kinds of families, and some kids, I think, you know, need more help than others, and you know, some kids don't have parents. So we have to be really frank about that and say that, you know, our public school system is able to help a lot of folks, and we just have to make sure that it gets funded, and we need to hold somebody responsible, and that's the reason why we still have it. And I think that we do need to continue mayoral control for now.
Yuh-Line, I'm sorry to say I have to disagree. I have 3 sons that I raised in the public system. I have 4 grandchildren, and today I got the surprise of my life. I am going to have a number 5. Thank you so much. And I do know the issues and the concerns about what you're talking about, but maybe you were a baby when you first started. However, I disagree on the fact that basically we need back control. We got to take that control back from the mayor, because if we don't, first of all, our voices haven't been heard. So where is all the voices of our children, what's going on with the schools, the teachers? We don't have that voice anymore. We don't have community school boards anymore. These were the things that used to thrive in our community, because these were the issues and the things that would happen in these schools we were able to address and we were able to do. So mayoral control, it's got to come out of the mayor and back into the public and back into those parents that have those kids in those public schools. Thank you.
I'd like to talk about small business. Another area we talked about a crisis with residential housing. We've lost a lot of mom and pop businesses in this community, as in all over New York City. There's a variety of proposals that are on the table. The Save NYC group has been advocating strongly for rent renegotiation rights for commercial tenants. There's the idea of property tax incentives for businesses or for property owners who keep their mom and pop businesses in place. The community board has been talking about zoning that would protect mom and pop businesses. Can you discuss which one of these, if any, ideas you support, and whether there are other ideas for saving small businesses that you would advocate for?
Sure. So I actually appreciate your coverage on the issue of small businesses leaving our district, and you had done a really great 8-piece study. And I think that it's important to address some of the underlying issues that you had mentioned, high rents and red tape. Just yesterday, Comptroller Scott Stringer actually addressed this issue of red tape and high rents for small businesses, and we had a year-long survey to see. He had a year-long survey to see what some of the toughest things that small businesses faced were, and the results showed that particularly expediters were actually not worth their money, that the city needed to speed up the approval process as a whole. And that these things, people were putting a lot of money and it was just sitting in waiting for approval. So I think that we can continue with both your and Scott's work on trying to survey some of these businesses as they come in and out. And one of the things that I would want to do is to do a once in a year business survey to try to see why businesses are leaving and how other businesses are surviving and thriving. And this way we can help our small businesses to grow and thrive and continue to create jobs here. Another thing that I wanted to address is also that after Sandy, one of my favorite little restaurants right on the South Street Seaport, the Paris Cafe. I think a lot of you guys go there, but it was really hard to see because he had applied for an SBA loan and he had only gotten a very small amount from it. But other businesses, and he tried to do it the week of, and so other businesses after him had gotten other kinds of ideas and other things that were able to, that they were able to apply for services from the state and the city. But because, he tried to do it the very first week, it was very difficult for him to apply for other things because they were like, SBA loan, you can't apply for other things. And so we, in my office, thank you, in my office, would hopefully be able to put together a guide to be able to say hey, these are the small business loans that you can apply for, these are the different services that you can get, so that it would be in a good order so that everybody can get the right amount and get as much as they can get for emergency purposes.
Well, I believe the mom and pops should really get a tax breaks. I think this is why some of our mom and pop stores are leaving us. And another thing is the buildings also. They have so much that they have to pay in rent. I think we should find a solution where we could maybe, I don't know, maybe like with the market, to try to get a lot of the mom and pops, brought into one arena where they don't have to pay so much rent, where they can actually survive. I'm sure that we can come up with something where we can save some of these mom and pops in our community.
Another small business related issue is the $15 minimum wage, which the governor has been pushing for. It is small business owners, some of them have been speaking out about it and the effect that it has on them. What's your viewpoint on this issue? Let's start with Alice. The $15 minimum wage.
I agree. I mean, I think it should be a little bit more than 15, but I'm in favor of this. I'm in favor of the minimum wage. Yes.
Yeah, I think that it is hard at first. I think that people will, I also think that $15 minimum wage is a little too little here in New York City. But $15 minimum wage, we all know that people who are working families, when you are paid $15 minimum wage, where are you spending it? You're spending it locally, right? So that's going to be where you're going to spend it. You're going to spend it in the small businesses locally. And that's why it's so necessary, and it will help actually our community and our small businesses that we have $15 minimum wage.
A few years ago, the former Assembly member and State Senator Daniel Squadron pushed through legislation on inner-city buses to have regulation for the buses that travel among the various Chinatowns. There has been a lot of discussion about this because it's a quality of life issue, and many people believe that the law has been ineffective. So I want to talk to you both about whether you believe that's true or whether it's an enforcement issue and that it's just not being effectively enforced. I don't remember who went first. Yuh-Line, why don't we start?
Sure. Actually, I looked at the legislation, and I think that the law is actually written well. I think that it is an issue more with enforcement and with also making sure that we have, people who have no permits, like having to apply if they're going to be there. Right now we have an issue, basically like a lot of the buses out there are operating without permits, and they're picking up and dropping off wherever they want. And I actually was like trying to flag down a city bus because there was one of those inner city buses parked right where the MTA bus lane was, and I was like trying to flag it down. I was in the middle of the street, and I had just gotten in a car accident, so I was just like, please goodness, do not let me get hit by another car. But the city really needs to triple down on enforcement and get these bad actors off the street. And I think that we have 2 stops that are already allowing folks to have those inner city buses park and pick up people. So the law is actually helping to make sure that we have the rights to enforce, and I think that we just need to take advantage of that.
Well, with that, certainly I agree. And I think that our precincts are overloaded with all of the crime and everything else that's happening in our community, but we do need more enforcement to ticket these buses so they know exactly what's going on. There needs to be more enforcement with the local precincts.
Another quality of life issue that is frequently brought up is nightlife, constant sort of battle between nightlife operators and residents who feel that there's been proliferation of too many liquor licenses in confined areas of the Lower East Side. Do either of you believe that more needs to be done in state law to give the state liquor authority more ability to control the situation in neighborhoods like this one? Alice, let's start with you.
Yes, I agree. I think the SLA should be accountable for all of the liquor license that's been coming up in Community Board 3 and 2. They have to be accountable for what's going on, absolutely.
I don't want us to become a neighborhood with all bars and no grocery stores. That's kind of where we're headed. And one of the things is we need to make sure that we have retail diversity, and that there needs to be enforcement on bad actors in the bar industry. Loud bars with obnoxious patrons need to have a threat of their liquor licenses being taken away. One of the things that we can maybe think about, and I was kind of wrapping this around my head, I don't know if a lot of you guys probably don't know this, but I used to be a bartender at Winnie's, just an FYI. And so, yeah, Winnie's. And so, one of the things that I've been thinking about is maybe we can even explore the idea of a probationary period for licenses. We want to make sure that businesses are what they say they are. One of the things that we have an issue with is that people will say like, oh, I'm going to be in a high-end restaurant to their CV, and then in the end it turns out to be something else. And I think that actually hurts our communities more than it helps.
I want to turn back to local politics, since there has been some controversy over the way that this unusual special election has unfolded. Yuh-Line, you've been vocal about saying that the process at the county committee was undemocratic, and you think that there should be reform in the way that candidates are selected in this specific kind of situation. And I know that, Alice, you feel differently. Why don't we start with you and address what happened at the county committee?
Well, for starters, the mechanics of the process is a process that's been going on for 200 years. For someone to change the process now, it has to go through a process with the county. What Yuh-Line is talking about is, Yuh-Line actually, and I'm going to be very honest, did not have the numbers to become the Democratic nominee. But meanwhile, Yuh-Line was knocking on everybody's door, on all the county committee's door, trying to get support. So, I'm only telling you the truth. So basically, with that, because Yuh-Line's club, the UDO, did not have enough numbers to pull her over, Yuh-Line decided that the process was not fair. Meanwhile, I had 3 clubs that gave me their support, and Yuh-Line's club was one of them. And with that, she became, she didn't feel the process worked her way, so she decided to go in the working families part. So I again was selected by the county committee. It was 182 who selected me as their nominee for the Democratic line for April 19th, and Yuh-Line thought it was an unfair process. So if Yuh-Line feels that she should change it, then, she can do that. She has every right to do that. But to say that the process was not done properly is not true. Because what it was that Yuh-Line was not elected. That's the real truth.
I am so proud to have knocked on so many doors. You guys deserve a vote. You guys deserve a vote. You guys deserve to choose who your elected official is, and that is why I'm running on the Working Families Party line, so you have a vote. I am a progressive Democrat because I think that the democratic process works, and we need to have a vote.
Yes.
The county committee process is very old, and I am going to plan on changing it. I'm going to work very hard on changing it because it shouldn't be decided by a couple of people, 200, not even. It should be decided by you. It should be decided by you, the voters. This is a basic thing. I don't belong to any club. I don't belong to any club, and I'm very proud of it. I am very proud of the fact that, you know what, I did knock on county committee members' doors. I went and called everyone, knocked on their doors, because that is how people talk to their voters. If you want to be a candidate, you should talk to your voters. Am I right? Thank you.
All right, I'm going to leave it at that for the moment. I know there's lots of people in this room who have questions. So we're going to start to take some of them, and if we have time at the end, I'll ask a few more. Jeremy, do we want to just go around the room or do it live?
Is Straven able to help?
Yeah, she can go around with the mic.
I'm gonna start towards the back. Who wanted to ask first?
I am Ted Fender. I live at 568 Grand East River, and this question is for Ms. Council. I am curious. I understand that the man you work for, Scott Stringer, is endorsing Yuh-Line rather than you. I'm just curious why that would be.
Because that was a backroom deal. How's that? I'm gonna tell you the truth. You want to talk about? That was a backroom deal. Well, that's something like the 3 men in a room. If you look at her palm card, it's 3 men in a room.
So Yuh-Line, I obviously have the chance to.
May I please respond? So I have the endorsement of Scott Stringer, the former comptroller John Liu. I have the endorsement of Senator Brad Hoylman. I'm just going to reveal this to everyone, but I also just got the endorsements of the Bronx Borough President Ruben Diaz and also Robert Rodriguez. They are 2 of the lead Puerto Rican leaders in elected officials. And on top of that, I have the endorsements of the UFT, 32BJ, the Tenants PAC. That's our people right there, the Tenants PAC. And I also have the endorsements of.
How about the neighborhood?
I think I have the endorsement of many of your neighbors. I think I have the endorsement of many of your neighbors.
Okay.
I think that this is going to be a lot of fun because I have the endorsements of so many folks.
Take control of this.
Please wait till you have the microphone.
Yeah.
If either of you are elected, could you talk about what you would do to help make sure that the MTA's proposed 5-year capital plan is fully funded? The MTA has said that it's going to run out of money for construction of new projects by June. That's a pretty serious thing for a city that depends on mass transit.
Yeah. Could you hear the question?
No, I couldn't hear it. I couldn't even see the
Making sure that the MTA's capital fund is fully funded.
It's a $29 billion capital plan. The governor and the mayor have proposed funding, but apparently Albany is fighting over how the state funding is going to happen. What would you do to ensure that critical construction projects are funded?
I mean, we have to fight for our city's fair share, right? That's one of the biggest things. We have a very interesting thing where New York City is literally the economic driver for our state, and yet we do not get our fair share. We have to make sure we fight for it. We have to say that, hey, we are literally the economic driver for our state. We are bringing in the money, and yet you're cutting services from us. We have to make sure that they understand that that's not acceptable. We have to make sure that we come up with good plans to make sure that we are able to fund the MTA, and there's no excuse to not fund it. We have to hold the governor accountable on that. You know, there's a lot of things that he'll say like, hey, we should push it off to the city, and that's not the way it should be. We are literally the economic driver, and we need to fight for our fair share.
Go ahead, Alex.
Same question?
I'm in agreement with that. We have to hold the governor accountable for all of this. And certainly going up there to Albany and talking to the legislators, we have to come up with some sort of plan to bring more money back into Lower Manhattan. Thank you.
Okay, we have another question here.
Good evening. Okay, good evening. This is for Yuh-Line. Hi, Liz. My name is Danny Guzman. Now, I want to ask you a question. I was at Education Alliance the day the big voting came in, and you had a beautiful speech, but at the end of it, you said you were backing out of the race. That's why you didn't get any votes. So now, I want to know, explain to me how, and plus you also said that you didn't want to run under the Democratic ticket because all Democrats are thieves. Now, if they all Democrats are thieves, why are you running under Democrat for working families and you work for a Democrat? Could you explain that to me where I could understand it?
I've never once said that all Democrats are thieves.
Yesterday.
No, I did not.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. And you-
So in any case, all I'm gonna say is that there's a lot of reasons why I dropped out of that county committee process, because, you know, I wanted to make sure to use that county committee process as a platform. I gave a speech to let folks know what I heard from them and that I heard them. It's a very, very good chance to actually talk to triple prime voters. These county committee folks are voters too. And so, you know, these are the folks that I wanted to talk to. I talked to each one, and, you know, whoever gave me the time to be able to talk to them, I listened to their issues, and those are the issues that I will also be bringing up to Albany.
All right, like I said, but if you backed out of it, you backed out of the election, why did you come back? You should have just stayed there,
I think you made your point.
okay?
You wanted to make sure that they're questioned, right?
Yes,
Not
I'll just say this, that, you know, this is not a forum for statements, from the audience, it's a forum for questions, for the candidates.
My name is Pastor Pedro Cardi. I'm the Vice President of Teamsters Local 210. I also am a resident here at East River. I have one simple question. You've sent your literature, I've received it all. My only question is, what have you done? Because I don't see anything on your literature as to what you have done in this community.
No. For one, I talked to county committee members during the process. For another, I have worked on, you know, knocking on doors, talking to each person. I've really campaigned very hard to let every single person know who I am and the things that I've brought to the state.
What you've done.
I have worked on.
For yourself, you raised $140,000 for yourself. Not for the kids, not for the elderly.
That's a statement.
Those are the questions.
I have also worked on trying to make sure that, you know, we have language access in our district. We worked on state legislation, working on language access, bringing in the school holiday bill. These are things that we worked on. The stickers that you see for the taxi drivers, that's actually my bill with my boss working on the Taxi Drivers Alliance, with the Taxi Drivers Alliance, to get more safety for our taxi drivers. You know, these are things that we always hear from our constituents. I was able to service 30 to 60 constituents a day with a freshman budget, which is less than $85,000. That's going to be a huge difference from what the former speaker had. Whoever comes in is going to be a freshman. And I'm going to tell you this, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. Whatever legislator comes in is going to have $85,000 or less, because our term's going to be shorter. But this is going to be something that we really need as a constituency for our constituency here. I was able to service 30 to 60 constituents, and that's almost 10,000 people a year. And that's what we need here. We need services. We need to make sure that our elderly folks can make sure that we have NYCHA applications and senior housing applications and SNAP benefits, know how to get their applications for Medicare and Medicaid. We need to make sure that, you know, people in wintertime have access to HRA and HEAP. You know, right now, we just went through a very, very cruel winter, and there's people without heat. You know, and the reason why is because we haven't had constituent services in the last 6 months. This is something that we need, and I know how to do, and I know I can deliver for you on day one.
Excuse me, so my question is for you.
Hi.
Hi, I am a parent from District 1. I am totally against mayoral control. How are you going to tell me as a parent that you are going to be on his side when I have never seen you in a CEC meeting or District 1 meeting? You do not come out and speak to parents about their concerns. You're letting an administration run our schools. The parents need our voice. Our children are suffering. We go to 311, we make our complaints, and the superintendent is the one with the last word. It doesn't go any further. So how are you, as a future part of this whole beautiful district of ours, going to change that?
I will be there. I will be there for you. I will be at your meetings. I will go, yeah, anything that you invite me to, I promise.
I am part of the CEC, and I will call you out on it.
Please. I will be there, I promise.
Hi, I got a question for both candidates. Rather than what you've looked upon thus far, which is all good, thank you, what would be your first order of business where you should you get to Albany? What you get there?
Let's start with you, Emily.
Again, it's going to be a short period from now to the primary. So to be very honest with you, I don't think there's going to be much business taken care of until actually the end of the year. Okay? And that's the truth.
Okay, so the first week that I'm up there, I'm going to be talking to John Wellspeak. I'm going to make sure to figure out what we in our district will be able to get from the State Assembly, make sure that I have a district office up and running so that you guys can have the constituent services that you deserve. We're going to be servicing folks. I'm going to be calling Legal Aid Society to make sure that they will come in and do tenant services, and also make sure that HRA is going to come in to make sure that we have cooling assistance. So one of the things that we have already prepared for my staff is to make sure that we get trained on how to provide these services for folks. I actually already put together a handbook to basically do things like, you know, how do we call Lifeline to make sure that senior cell phones work? How do we make sure that NYCHA applications are filled out properly? How do we have translated services for folks that have language access issues? You know, these are the things that we need to start looking at. And I'm going to start looking at also, you know, I just heard actually from Betsy, from the UJA, that like literally they had their NORC funding pulled. Like these are things that we need to look at. I'm going to talk to all the folks that I can on what issues that we need, and I'm going to start bringing them up to Albany immediately. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rory Munshine. I'm a student, and I have a question for Ms. Cancel. Ms. Cancel, it's hard for me to really check policy because you don't have a website, but so everything that I understand about your campaign is on my phone from this discussion. So my question is, you say you want to improve the schools, you say that you want to have rent control, but where is the money going to come from? Because today you mentioned that you want mom and pop shops to get tax breaks. So how exactly are you going to balance the budget? Where is this extra money going to come from? Thank you.
I'll begin with, I do have a website, okay? You're not looking hard enough. So, mom and pops, again, I said tax breaks for them. And actually, again, if I go up to Albany, we're going to try to see if we can find some funding for mom and pops, for small businesses, which I know is suffering very much in this community, which I know that Nydia Velazquez, our Congresswoman, has been working tirelessly to make sure that we do not lose these mom and pop stores in our community. Thank you.
Hello. Regarding the Rivington House, I know Lowdown had pretty good coverage on what's been happening. You know, it's pretty much was a community hospital, a lot of aged people there, then it was transforming to a nursing home. How do you feel about the deed restriction being lifted and the controversy coming after that?
Sure. I mean, I think that it's so great that Scott Stringer is actually taking a look at that and making sure that, you know, we can address some of those issues. I mean, Mayor de Blasio just came out to say that they were lied to, right? I mean, this is something that is startling. This is a long-term care facility that was literally flipped from 16 mil to 70, and that's money that belongs to us. That's our taxpayer dollars, and that money should be used for us. I mean, you know, we have to make sure that we're not losing our services, long-term care facilities, for more luxury condos that we don't need, right? Like, these are things that we need to address and make sure that we have, you know, this is legitimately one of the things that, you know, I actually put out a statement that is very, very concerning for our community to have happen. I mean, this is very serious. But thank you for bringing that up.
Do you have anything else you'd like to add about Rivington House, Alex?
Yes, that was a facility that was a long time a facility that we thought was going to actually be turned into a senior housing, because that's what we needed in this community, and that's not what happened. So whatever negotiations took place with the mayor and all those backroom deals, we, the community, had no say and we had no voice. However, again, I will certainly make sure. Now, I know it's on the table, but I think as a community we can go out there and try to see if we can negotiate something, because that's still it's still ours. Thank you.
think we should actually negotiate something. We should actually be asking for the entire thing to be reversed. We should make sure that those deed restrictions are completely staying in place and that they have to reflect the money.
Hi, I just heard that we have been, I'm Jenny Low, I'm a district leader, I am a resident of 65th Assembly District in Chinatown. I just heard that we, at this point of our district, having to elect a freshman to the assembly, we are at a significant disadvantage in terms of constituent services, funding for that services. I was told, I understand that we used to have over $1 million in constituent services, and we used to have a lot, and those of us who have lived in this district for a long time have enjoyed that benefit that we had. But today, when we elect someone new to Albany, we are getting $85,000 in funding for this community services. So my question is that I'd like both of you to demonstrate and tell about the track record you have in managing a budget, and specifically, how do you stretch those $85,000 for us?
We'll start with you, Alex.
85,000. Okay. First of all, I'll probably get 2 staffers. Maybe 1, because if you're trying to get a district office to work the constituency, I don't think there's much there actually. But you know, I think as a junior you know, freshman up in Albany, I can try to make it work.
So $85,000 is what I started out with managing Ron Kim's budget as his chief of staff. I have a proven track record of being able to make sure that, you know, we have services. Nobody even felt like they skipped a beat from somebody who was much more senior. I was able to service, like I said, 30 to 60 constituents a day. That's 10,000 constituent cases a year. We even put out district trends report for everyone to see what are the hot issues, so that people can see, you know, what the numbers are for the things that they needed to see, like, you know, how many NYS applications did we fill out, how many SNAP benefit forms, how many Medicaid, Medicare applications did we fill out. These are things that we need in our district, and I'm definitely going to make sure that, you know, we are taken care of. You know, 85,000 to me is not something impossible to work with, and I don't think it's too little to start something really great. I will make sure that you guys don't feel it, that I'm the only person that feels it, and that yes, it's going to be tough being a freshman, and it's going to be tough getting people to listen and work with you, but I already know a lot of people that, you know, I work really well with as chief of staff, and, you know, I'm going to be able to hit the ground running on day one, help to deliver services for you, and also make sure that your voices are heard and represented well. I'm not going to let just a little budget mess me up. I'm not going to let, you know, being a freshman hinder how much I have to say. So that's me, and I know that I'm going to continue to work hard for you. So I hope that you will make sure that that happens for you.
Hi, I'm Veronique Doumbé. I'm a filmmaker living in this neighborhood for the last 35 years, I guess. I have 2 daughters who are adult, paying taxes, and they can find an apartment to live in. And I had less money when I was their age, and I had an apartment because it was reasonable. Now, how long do you think the millennia are going to stay in their house, in the house of their parents? And I'm sure a lot of parents are thinking the same way. So, are they going to have affordable housing so they can stay in the neighborhood, or do they have to leave the city? You know what I'm saying? Because it's impossible. I used to live in a studio, and they Googled that studio. Now it's being called a loft, and it costs $3,000. I mean, and the bathroom is right next to the kitchen. I was there for 20 years until I found a new apartment. Now, how long are they going to stay in my apartment? I like them very much. but, okay. And I'm sure a lot of parents feel the same way. So what are you going to do about that? You know, are they going to wait until they're senior to have a place to live?
So we'll start with Alice. What more would you be willing to do as an assembly member to address this problem?
Well, right now, we're still dealing with the issues of a lot of Mitchell-Lamas that we still have in the district that are disappearing. And those Section 8 and all of those supportive measures to actually keep a lot of our people in the district is something that's going to be my priority. Because you see, I also lived in a Mitchell-Lama, okay? And my son is now raising his family in that affordable housing, right? And this is, again, because I raised my family here, and my family also needs to live in affordable housing. That is going to be my issue when I get elected April 19th. Thank you.
Yeah, one of the things that we had addressed earlier was to make sure that we have stronger rent protection. I think that we need to make sure that folks, that we're building more affordable housing, that we are able to make sure that folks are able to keep their sons and daughters somewhat nearby, but not that close, right? Yeah, exactly. Somewhat close by, but not that close, right? I think that it's important to make sure that we preserve the diversity that makes the Lower East Side so special and so beautiful and so amazing, right? And we need to also make sure that, you know, I mean, this is why you guys stay, because you love this neighborhood, and we want to make sure that, you know, we provide the way to be able to do that. We have to have more affordable housing. We have to make sure that we ask that question. You know, when we build affordable housing, like, affordable for whom, right? We have to make sure that we're making enough low-income units as well, so that folks can come in and then, you know, be able to stay here. Absolutely. I think that's a great question, and I will definitely fight for our interests. You know, as you know, I have the endorsement of the Tenants PAC, and these are very, very big issues for them as well. Thank you.
Hi. First, I want to say good luck to both of you.
Thank you.
My name is Daisy Pius. I'm the president of the board of the Grand Street Guilds. I represent 600 very low-income families, and we live right in the midst of the new buildings going up. We're enduring the dust, we're enduring everything. And we're Section 8. You stated, Yuh-Line, that when Exit Street Crossing starts its project, you would like to invest funds in the school that's supposed to be put up there. However, my question to both of you ladies is, how are you going to propose to keep Section 8 buildings, which were, I think, the second to the ones in this community? How are you going to propose to keep us safe in our apartments and not to lose our apartments based on the new gentrification that's coming up, and we're going to have to stay upscale with the apartments? Because when you say affordable rent, I need to ask you, affordable to whom? It can't be affordable to myself or my children. I've been here 60 years. I've never seen this before. For our children to get an apartment where we have our roots grounded in, it's nearly impossible. So how do you propose to keep us, you know, tenants like myself, 60 years here, to maintain here and not lose our Section 8? Thank you.
Yuh-Line Niou, start.
Okay, sure. So, I mean, right now, we're not going to get any more Section 8. We're not getting any more NYCHA, right? We have, there's no more funding from the federal government.
Different than
Yes,
Section 8.
no, I know.
Totally different.
Yes, one's a federally funded program, one's a state, yes,
So,
I know.
I want to know just about NYCHA. I mean, I want to know just about Section 8, because we have representatives for NYCHA. I'm representing Section 8. So direct the question to Section 8, please.
Sure. I mean, one of the things is that we just have to preserve it, right? We have to find ways for our state to be able to afford to preserve it. And, you know, it's about making sure that we continue to fund and make sure that, I mean, by the way, I know that there was an incident with the elevator, right, in your building this New Year, so I'm sorry about that. But one of the things that, you know, we have to make sure is, like, those kinds of things should not happen. Those kinds of things, like safety issues. Right now there's a bill the Mason tenders are putting together for making sure that there's, you know, elevator repairmen are regulated, things like that. So these are all things that are really, really important. And like I said, you know, we just have to make sure that the state is funding Section 8, and we have to continue to fund it.
Go ahead, Allison.
Now, I was at that emergency meeting at 131 Broome Street, and we do know what happened there. and that should never happen again. And I know that that there is a bill there that I believe our county leader Keith Wright put together along with Daniel Squadron. And I know they're doing a good job up there. And I'm going to be right there with them to make sure that a lot of these things that are happening in our community get taken care of. And I'm right there with you. Okay?
My question is on NYCHA. And just to clarify and correct you, the New York City Housing Authority receives federal, state, and city funding, not just Section 8. And we do have Section 8 properties under the NYCHA portfolio. So my question is this. My name is Nancy Ortiz. I represent Vellatic Houses, 1,778 families, with a population of 3,096. With the New York City Housing Authority's infill plan, how do you foresee protecting the NYCHA developments from infill in the future?
Yes, yes.
Please. I'll bypass out, just a minute.
Okay, so I think that we do need to protect our NYCHA housing from the infill stuff, but at the same time, we also...
It's not stuff.
Let her answer the
I'm
question.
doing my best.
Okay, the infill issue. I know that there are developments that people are constantly looking at the plots of land around you. This is very important for our community to make sure that, you know, we know that development is coming anyway, but at the same time, we have to stand up to make sure that, you know, whatever it is that is happening, the conversations that are happening, you guys are a part of it, and that you guys are the main voice that are heard, right? That the folks that are living there, who are already working, living, playing there, have the voice, and the community-based solution is the perfect solution.
Hello, my name is Ed Barringhouse.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Ed. I live in Hillman, and I've been here for about 15 years. And in that time, I've seen tremendous change in this neighborhood. Lots of the old buildings going down, lots of major buildings with many apartments going up. And we're about to experience probably more of this kind of build than in the entire history, of the Lower East Side. And that, of course, is Essex Crossing. Now, the fact is, say what you will about Mr. Silver, but this neighborhood had some focus in Albany up until he was summarily released of his duties. And this particular period is very, very, very limbo. We don't have any leadership in this neighborhood right now. So my question to both of you is, you've got a lot of problems in the past that need to be rectified, clearly education, there's housing issues. We're about to have this onslaught of new construction, new people moving into the neighborhood, stressing our transportation, stressing our stores. What qualifies both of you to be able to deal with this going forward? What is it in your skill set, and more specifically in your heart? This is not a game of politics, it's a game of serving your community. What is it that makes you so special that we should give you the honor of representing us in Albany? Thank you.
We'll start with you, Alex.
Well, what gives me my passion is that I have lived here, and I have seen all of these developments going up and going down. And I have seen a lot of the community being basically much tied up with a lot of the things that are happening. Now, of course, me going into the assembly, I could only, again, I could try to relieve a lot of the things that are going on in this community. I can't say I can do much because, again, we're going into a primary. So right after I get into office, I'm going to be running another race. That's when I can basically say to you, I'm still here, and I still want, I want your support, and certainly I want to make you understand that I have been here 40 years, and I have worked in this community, and I have raised my family here. So, again, I can't say I can do much, because right after I win, I'm gonna be running for, for office in the primaries. But I am going to be here, and I am going to be there with you, and I will try to bring any resources, any funding, anything that this community needs, I will bring to you.
That's a great question. Thank you for asking it. I have over 15 years of public service experience under my belt. I've worked on the state level for over 15 years. I started as an intern. I worked in a lot of different places, but at the same time, statewide Poverty Action Network was one of the most enriching experiences of my life. I worked for an organization that worked to stop payday lending. We worked to stop redlining in insurance companies for car insurance. And I was able to regulate that industry in 1 year. They thought that it couldn't be done. It was 10 years of work for them. But for me, I was able to leverage my networks, be able to fight for what I felt was right. And like I said, when I had that conversation with that legislator, I was very frank. And I will be willing to make sure that you're my top priority, not just winning office for the next term. You guys are going to be the ones who see me, who hear from me, and I'm going to be listening to you. And I'm going to be making sure that you hear my voice and that I hear yours. This is my priority. It's about making sure that hey, we're going to be missing 6 months of constituent services. I'm going to be making sure to play catch up. I'm going to set up that constituent office. It's not true that we can't do something our first year. It is not true that we can't do something in 6 months. JFK had a really great quote, and he said, one man can make a difference, but every man should try. And I'm going to be there to try for you.
Hi, my name is Max, and this is for both of you. Both of you have expressed concern over diminishing small businesses and mom and pop shops, and expressed support for a $15 minimum wage. If the latter becomes a reality, are you at all concerned that small businesses would not be able to keep up employment by hiring them at such high wages, except for substantial tax cuts and tax breaks? And if so, what are the strategies would you implement to support small businesses, to support people to work there at higher wages?
Yuh-Line first.
Like I said, it'll take a moment for all of us to catch up, the small businesses to catch up. But when when money goes into the pockets of working families, they spend locally. They spend at the small businesses that we're talking about, and so that's very important. So I think that it can come into stages of hey, we can give maybe some kind of tax incentive to stay in the place, like maybe some kind of almost like a rent control for the space or something like that. Since Scott Stringer's, his look and survey of organizations and businesses is that rent is one of the biggest things and concerns. So I think things like that could really help, and then we can stagger it and then help to make sure that the cost of small business and the way that they operate isn't as high, so that we can make sure that $15 is something that they can pay, because that's what our workers need and that's what what our city needs. Thank you.
Going back to what I said originally, tax breaks for small mom and pop shops is the way to go. And certainly we need more of an incentive to try to gain more of, to have mom and pops pay out a little bit more. Because I do understand that the more they pay out, the less they'll have. However, I am going to certainly be working on that just as well, to make sure that we have our mom and pops and have them stay here in our community.
Hi, my name is Harriet Skidelsky. I live in Seward Park Housing. I live on the corner of Grand and Clinton, right across the street from all the new construction, and I have a view of the single lane of cars going on to the Williamsburg Bridge. So at night when I look out my window, which I'm very lucky I have that view, it looks like a scene from Field of Dreams where the cars are forever going on and on and on. And this area has become so congested with cars. You say that the Lower East Side is where everybody wants to move and come, they're coming with cars. And it's just getting very, very, very unsafe. You can't cross the street because you have 2 lanes of bicycles and 2 lanes of parked cars, and then 3 lanes of double parked trucks. And this is before the buildings have even gone up. So I understand that everyone's going to be campaigning once this is over, but could somebody please address this real problem that's going on? Because someone's going to get killed, and then everyone's going to say, oh yeah, we should have done something about that.
Julian, go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, sure. So, I mean, right in that area, because you have so many bridges near you, and none of them are getting tolled, I think that a lot of the traffic is also coming from the fact that, you know, the bridges aren't getting tolled, and then a lot of traffic is being circumvented, right, to come down that way, right? I think that that's one of the issues that we have so much.
It's not. It's just that everything has become 1 lane, and there's a lot more congestion.
Oh, okay.
And once the buildings go up, you're gonna have supermarkets, you're gonna have delivery trucks, you're gonna have more double parking. You have 1 lane for traffic, and there's no pedestrian crossing, in my opinion, that is safe anymore on Clinton Street.
I will definitely work with DOT to see what's going on there much more clearly.
Yeah, come take a look.
I went there, and actually I was like very shocked because I think like it's very difficult to even get to any of the businesses. It's difficult to get to any of the places when I've tried to get around. So I know exactly what you're talking about, but it's one of those things where we should look at some solutions for you.
Because the
It's for
buildings are
everybody.
going up, and they have not accounted for any parking.
Absolutely.
There is no parking in the future for all the cars coming in to all the new apartments. So it's really should,